These three archetypes, they somehow, in different ways, lead to a regression in development, in character, in finances, in social status, wherever else. You begin to harbor a negative mentality. It affects your judgment, it affects who you are as an individual, and it affects what you're capable of, or the epitome of what you can achieve. So I implore you to watch out for these three archetypes, as if the many great and powerful men, if they have met their end in the hands of the foolish, bitter and envious, rest assured that you will be no different. Avoid the foolish, bitter and envious. They infect you. You see, try your utmost to avoid these individuals who display these characteristics. As people who display these characteristics, they could affect you or influence you in quite unforeseen ways. These three types of people in particular are an abundant bunch in society. And one way or another, eventually you're going to encounter these individuals and you need to know how to deal with them accordingly. It is essential and of paramount importance that you identify these individuals from the jump so that they can cause minimal damage to you and your reputation. As if you acknowledge these three archetypes too late, then the damage caused to you and your reputation will be irreversible, and it could reach to the point of no return. Although engaging with the foolish, bitter and envious, they affect you in slightly different ways, and it deviates in the way in which they affect you. It more or less leads to the same outcome, at least in the way that I see it. And one way or another, engaging with these three archetypes will eventually lead to your demise. First and foremost, the first archetype, the foolish. You see, the foolish, they infect you with their ignorance and stupidity, whether that is their ideas, their behaviors, so on and so forth. If you find yourself constantly amidst the company of fools, then you soon find that you are no different from a fool yourself. You begin to emulate the characteristics of a fool, to the point that it clouds your perception and your judgment. And as ignorance sets in and it affects your judgments and perceptions, it soon drains your energy. And when you adopt their ideals, it comes to the extent where you focus on things and become so obsessed with things that are so trivial, when you should be focusing on yourself as opposed to said things. The dangerous thing about being foolish is that it kind of prevents you from being prudent, to the extent that you literally avoid being prudent. You kind of are almost allergic to it, or it seems like you're allergic to it, where you just actively avoid seeking knowledge and seeking prudence through life, through experience and whatnot. The second archetype, the bitter. See, with the bitter, it rots your heart from within. And you begin to have a very pessimistic worldview, a pessimistic perception of knowing yourself, but everything, any and all around you. You begin to harbor a negative mentality. It affects your judgment, it affects who you are as an individual, and it affects what you're capable of, or the epitome of what you can achieve. See, being bitter only further imbues your feelings of inadequacy by watching and, being fixated over the people, ideas, or systems that you despise. See, if you kind of indulge in a company of bitter people, then you'll soon be surrounded by people who know of nothing than showing contempt to not only themselves but to others and any and all around them. The reason why they're bitter is that past injuries that have been performed against them, it will never be forgiven, and betrayals will kind of never be shrugged off, and they kind of internalize that, and they project it on themselves, and they project it to other people as well. Finally, and arguably the most dangerous, the envious. Similar to what Robert Greene said about envy, um, the envious, they are reminded day by day, one way or another, of their inferiority by ideas, by people, wherever else. And they'll project that kind of inferiority and turn it into anger, turn it into insecurity, and they'll reflect that reflection onto other people to kind of make their feelings of inadequacy more tolerable. They're very similar to the bitter in the sense that they hold a great contempt for others and themselves in a similar way, and they both show feelings of inadequacy. But I believe that envious people are a bit more sporadic in the way that they act and their actions towards people. This is why envy or hanging around with the envious is the most dangerous of the three archetypes. Is because whether people like to admit or not is the most natural of the three, and it's the most present in society. Amongst the fools, the bitter people not so much, but the other two are. That's why I say it's the most destructive part, because out of all the three archetypes, I think the most people lost their lives was due to envy, or hanging around with the envious, or being in the presence of the envious. If you kind of associate yourself with the envious, you soon find that they like to, more often than not, conspire to ruin those who are somehow one way or another doing better than them, in order to quell their own feelings of insecurity. If they cannot gain what the other person has, then they'll go to any and all lengths, even if it means their own destruction, in order to take that said thing away from that said person. Even if it means at the expense of their reputation or even their own lives. In conclusion, these three archetypes, they somehow, in different ways, lead to a regression in development, in character, in finances, in social status, wherever else. That is why it is imperative to avoid these three archetypes. It's because it does a lot more harm for you than it does good. This is why I implore everybody to smoke these three archetypes out, find out who they are and how they're associated with you, and kind of slowly diminish them out of your lives. Just like a fire. You have a fire. You want to do what you can to kind of extinguish that fire before it becomes unmitigated and things go out of hand. You want to do that with these people, very similarly so. The main thing I also wanted to say is that not only do these three archetypes destroy you, but they also massively halt progress, as long as you're associated with them. The main thing is, if you see where all three correlate, is with the foolish, the first archetype. It breeds ignorance, which kind of brings about contempt for the misunderstood, misinformation, wherever else, and that halts progress. You look at the bitter. the second archetype, and that brings about contempt of self, and that holds progress. And the final and third archetype, the envious, brings about and breeds contempt of others, and that holds progress. So that's why I implore you to avoid these three archetypes, and if you cannot avoid them, then smoke them out, because they are there in society in different manifestations, and kind of deal with them accordingly. You know, be aware that they're there, they're present, and they can use you to whatever which means that they desire. As insufferable as these three archetypes may be, it may actually be the contrary, in the sense that um, you may actually find their company pleasurable, or actually, stimulating one way or another, and you kind of enjoy their company, especially with the foolish. Not really much of the bitter or envious, but with the foolish, some people may be clowns, some people may just be stupid, and sometimes we find that funny, we find that enjoyable, and you enjoy the pleasure of their company. But hanging around the foolish, it does more harm to you than good, because you end up like one of them, as I said prior. So those are the three archetypes. Avoid them if you can, smoke them out if possible. So I implore you to watch out for these three archetypes, as if the many great and powerful men, if they have met their end in the hands of the foolish, bitter and envious, rest assured that you will be no different. So stay prudent, and let this be a subject of meditation and reflection.